Ich war die vergangenen 5 Tage in Riga in Lettland unterwegs und habe mehrere P2P-Plattformen besucht, Projekte angeschaut und Interviews geführt. Unter anderem war ich auch bei Mintos zu Besuch und durfte ein Interview mit Co-Founder und COO Martins Walters führen. Ihr hattet die letzten Wochen ja die Möglichkeit, mir Fragen für Mintos mitzugeben und die konnte ich jetzt auch alle stellen und auch noch ein paar Fragen, die ich persönlich einfach hatte. Und dadurch ist jetzt wirklich meiner Meinung nach sehr interessantes, halbstündiges Interview entstanden. Das ganze Interview wurde natürlich auf Englisch geführt, war für mich überhaupt eins der ersten Interviews in meinem Leben und dann auch noch auf Englisch. Darum wundert euch nicht, dass ich vielleicht ein bisschen stocksteif rede an manchen Stellen, weil ich einfach ein bisschen eingerostet bin, was Englisch angeht. Aber ja, das Interview könnt ihr euch jetzt anschauen und wenn ihr noch irgendwelche Fragen habt, die offen geblieben sind, schreibt die gerne in die Kommentare, denn ich bin nächsten Monat nochmal in Riga, besuche weitere Plattformen, werde wahrscheinlich auch nochmal bei Mintos vorbeischauen. Und ganz kurz an dieser Stelle der Hinweis, solltet ihr euch nach diesem Video vielleicht dazu entscheiden, Mintos mal auszuprobieren, macht das gerne über den QR-Code hier, den ich einblende. Darüber bekommt ihr immer den besten Bonus. Momentan gibt es sogar bis zu 500 € Neukundenbonus über den QR-Code hier und den Code WELLS25. Die Aktion läuft aber nur noch bis zum 31.10., aber ich stelle auf jeden Fall sicher, dass es über den Code hier immer den besten Bonus gibt. Bevor wir ins Interview starten, ganz kurz der Disclaimer an dieser Stelle. Es handelt sich natürlich nicht um Anlageberatung, Kaufempfehlungen oder derartiges. Bitte lest euch den Disclaimer an dieser Stelle einmal durch und seid euch immer der Risiken von Wertpapieren und anderen Finanzinstrumenten bewusst.
So I'm sitting here with Martins from Mintos, the COO, and Martins, my first question for you. How would you describe your job here? What is your main job at Mintos?
So currently as CEO, my main job is kind of bringing our ambitious plans into reality. So kind of helping to kind of achieve our vision. And as a co-founder and being here from basically kind of day one, I think I have done all the jobs except engineering.
Yeah.
So I have kind of quite good overview like what each teams are doing, and my job is really kind of help all the teams kind of work better together and work on like different projects that kind of help us kind of bring Mintos forward.
All right, nice. So to somebody who never heard about Mintos, what would you say to him? What is Mintos? What can you do on Mintos?
So Mintos basically today's investment platform, a place where retail investors can come and build their portfolio across different investment, across different financial instruments. So it is starting from our instrument with what we have worked the most, so investments in loans, but today we also offer investments in well-known instruments such as ETFs. We offer different high-yield bonds. We have started to offer also investments in real estate, rental real estate, and last but not the least is for investors who want to kind of save their money, park their money safely, is instrument what we call SmartCash, which basically is a money market fund, which kind of provides low interest, but it's the alternative basically to bank deposit.
It's with BlackRock or who's behind it?
Yeah. So we are offering a BlackRock fund.
Nice. Okay. So you started as a typical P2P platform, but today you're like a multi-asset platform. Are there any other products planned for the future?
Yeah. So this has been kind of our goal to kind of go from single asset, which is investments in loans, into multi-asset, and that goes together with our vision, where we want to provide for any retail investors that comes with us and kind of build like a full-fledged portfolio. Apart from the instruments that I already named, we are actually working now to launch also investments in single stocks and single ETFs. And we are also looking how to offer investments in crypto, and for the start it would be through crypto ETPs.
So when are you planning to launch this product?
It's coming soon. I don't know how this when this interview is kind of coming out, but I think by very early kind of early next year, so January, we would launch at least like one of those 3 products, and then during the remaining quarter remaining 2.
So the main business is still loans, like P2P, with what you were growing in the past. To P2P, it's normal that a loan gets default. It's normal in the industry. But when a loan gets default, what are the steps you're doing to get the money back for us investors?
Yeah. Just like for start, so it is still the kind of majority of our investments are done in loans, but currently from kind of new investments, around like 30% are already going into other assets such as
To
bonds,
bonds.
ETFs. Yeah, exactly. So 70 at this moment is investment in loans. So with loans, yeah, it's definitely there is a risk of non-payment from the borrowers and then also from the lending companies. So as a company, we have introduced the structures that firstly the non-payments from the borrowers are absorbed by the lending company, so investors don't need to think about that kind of on day-to-day basis. But obviously this non-payment by borrowers or defaults can lead to financial difficulties of the lending company, or in the worst case as kind of some difficulties or default for lending company. What we do in those cases, it actually starts with before those cases actually happen, or these problematic cases arises. So we pay quite much of attention how we are doing the structure of our deals. And some part of that has been improved from our learnings, as well as when we became regulated financial institution a few years ago, we also had to kind of change the way how our investments in loans were transferred from kind of regular investment in single loan to a financial instrument that is backed by those loans. And with that help or with that transition, we are actually now also requesting additional pledge of those loans for those securities, which gives additional security for investors. There is always an SPV in between, so the end borrower and investor. Even though that might kind of sound just like a very small technical thing, but based on our experience when we have had to go to courts, it has been kind of harder, or at least kind of more lengthy time to prove to the kind of courts around different countries in the world to show that like how this investment structure works. But in this case, when it's just like kind of one SPV who is buying the loans and then reselling them to investors through financial instrument, it kind of, based on our experience, it also kind of eliminates or like minimizes this risk. So all in all, this kind of big part of job is done before we kind of even start offering anything. So that's like one, but obviously all those things, and on top of that, we are also looking where possible to make pledges on the bank accounts of the lending companies, or for some countries it is like trust structures where if again some kind of problems occurs, we might be able to kind of secure that money from the borrowers. Having said that, there would be cases when anyways the financial difficulties for the lending companies arises, and then there are like number of things what we do. First and foremost, what we would be doing is going and trying to renegotiate or negotiate with the lending company and find for a mutually beneficial payment terms how this kind of delayed payments could be settled. And this is, even though we kind of understand that like investors want their money back right away when problems arises, and this is like very kind of understandable. I would say this is the best course of action if like lending company can just like get their things together, if they have some breathing time, and they can kind of restructure the payments and go back to kind of normal. And this has happened already kind of several times also under the investment firms structure, where we see some kind of financial difficulties. Yes, investors might be seeing pending payments for some time, but we have agreed with the company how they will make kind of payments and get back on track. If that kind of doesn't work, or let's say they are not able to do that, we would be looking if it's possible kind of to sell this to some other party, which in many countries is not kind of possible, or not so many buyers, but we still would be kind of evaluating. And as a last resort, but like we are not afraid of that, is basically kind of going to the court. And we have had kind of different experiences. We know how to do it. We have kind of, I think, quite relevant legal structures in place. The thing, like why I'm saying it's the last thing that we are doing is because any court process will easily take like up to kind of few years. 3-4 years might be normal with all the appeal instances and so on. As well as like when the court is over, it doesn't mean that the money is returned right away. You still need to do the collection. You just like get an order how to do that collection. But yeah, we are not kind of shining away from that, and sometimes it kind of works as tactics, or we just need to kind of go for that because it also puts some pressure on the lending company. But to sum it up, the best thing is find a way how to kind of restructure if there's like real difficulties, because companies that will be solvent will provide best repayment or like most recoveries for investors.
All right, nice. So following this question, there have been a lot of frozen loans from the Ukrainian-Russia war. A lot of my community members asked for it. Myself, I had some frozen loans. I got some repayments already. I see that something is happening already. But this is very specific and special because of the situation. What is your plan and time horizon there to get all the money maybe back, or the most of the money? Is there like a special way to do it because it's different to other loans that get default?
Yeah, it is definitely kind of a special situation, because in basically all cases it is not the solvency of the company or financial difficulties of the company, but it is particular factors. I would like to kind of distinguish like Ukrainian and Russian lending companies, because for Ukrainian we have basically at this moment like one lending company which owes money to investors. It is all operating. There are just like restrictions that money cannot be sent out from Ukraine for obvious reasons due to the war. But that is kind of from overall volume relatively small. From overall. When we look at lending companies from Russia, the story is slightly different. At the moment there are 4 or 5 companies, and also for each of the companies there are different things. Kind of to look at them holistically, I would single out Quico, which is large exposure, and unfortunately so far it seems that the management of Quico, they are not willing to pay, not able to pay, so there is no cooperation and basically kind of some anti-cooperation so far in terms of paying on what we have also kind of described. For the other companies, I see that there has been kind of willingness to settle the debts, and historically we have kind of recovered a big part of one of the lending companies very early after the war. What I would like to say, like what are the main challenges is moving money, because let's say there is money in Russian lending companies. We are ready to kind of accept that, but it is not as like for me kind of to transfer money to you for, let's say, if we had like a lunch and we would split the costs, I would do it like whatever through some app and it would be instantly there. The thing is that like as Europeans have imposed the restrictions on Russia, the same Russians have imposed restrictions like what payments can be done to Europeans, in this case kind of our investors. And basically whenever we find some kind of channel how the money can be sent, it works for a while, and this is like what also investors have seen, that like some repayments are coming in, but then suddenly the particular bank is put in a sanction list, so we are not able to kind of receive money through that bank anymore, or our bank is not willing to receive that. What we do in that case, we are looking like either we need to kind of open a new bank account, or that lending company needs to open a new bank account. And it's not that like you as a private person, you go and get your account open like in a day or so. It might take like few months, and then we have like a new payment route. And guess what? After like 2 months or 3, it's again kind of closed. So it's kind of a never-ending kind of game in a way. So that is basically the main challenge, is getting those payment routes. What we have done with some of the exposures, we have sold them. to kind of other parties who are either doing collections or making the payments. But again, also in those cases, there are many questions asked by our banks, the intermediary banks. So this is a thing why that money is kind of stuck there longer than expected, even though like we know that like we could recover big chunk of that. And me kind of being investor at Mintos as well, so I also have exposure to the Russian lending companies. So I have myself I have an incentive to do as much as possible together with teams to get back it.
Yeah, same for me. I had like 150 in total, so it wasn't that high because like 4 years ago, I wasn't investing that high. But now only €2 are outstanding or something like this. It's lowering every month, even if it's a few cents only. But I see something is happening. So I kind of reassure like we're doing quite much of worry, but like it doesn't happen quick in those cases because it involves a lot of different counterparties, a lot of different banks, and each are asking questions, regulators asking questions. So it takes sometimes seems like forever to get even like small transactions through. So now we talked about what happens when we have a default loan. Let's talk about the preparing that the loan doesn't get default. So you have like the Mintos risk score. It's like a first impression how secure a loan is. How exactly does this score works, and do you have a special team for this risk score, or how does it work?
Yeah, so Mintos risk score, it has developed over the years. I think we introduced it relatively early when we started, and this might be already some kind of second or third kind of iteration of that. So it's definitely not comparable to the kind of very early days. What we have tried to kind of encompass in the Mintos risk score for notes is different things that could impact the likelihood of payment. So we are looking first and foremost about the loan performance, because even though kind of individual defaulted loans will not have kind of direct impact on investors, if it goes at like bigger volumes, it just like as a snowball can impact. So we're looking at first and foremost on the how the loan book is performing, meaning how big are the defaults, like is it like sufficiently small so that like the loan book is performing. So that's one part. Other thing what we are looking is financial strengths of the company, because it might be that, let's say, your loan book is very good, but let's say the volumes of the lending company are not big enough, or they have a kind of quite big cost base, so you anyway take also the risk of the lending company. So this is like what we are looking on as part of our risk card. And on top of that, we are also looking what is different kind of country risks, because each country has different kind of legal risks and so on. And finally, we are also looking at what is legal structure, how we are cooperating. Because even though when investors invest is one type of financial instrument, corporation structures might differ based on what type of pledges are there. Are there like trust in place? Are there bank pledge in case? Group guarantees? So all those kind of different bits and pieces, kind of when combined, they give some gauge of like what is the risk of that particular investment. That is for investments in notes, so in investments in loans. And as we have recently also launched investments in bonds, and we are providing access to high yield bonds that are in many cases not rated by the international rating agencies. So we heard the feedback from investors that they also want to have some score for those investments in bonds.
Makes sense,
initially we actually thought it might be quite, how to say, not only costly but even not financially feasible to do that, because many of the instruments that we are offering is just like 100,000 or like 200,000 what we get access to that. but when kind of exploring that in more details, and actually also with help of AI models, so we have built a custom model that helps us to make that score in a more effective way, so we can even kind of provide it for relatively small amounts of investments. And here it is slightly different because, well, many of those bonds, they are not lending companies, but they are just like usual operational companies. So there we are looking very much what is the leverage of those companies, how big they are at covering the interest expenses, because these are primarily factors that show like if the company might default or not. And apart from those financial ratios, there's more than like those two, but we're also looking what industry the company is in, how cyclical it is, how stable. So is it kind of secured bond, unsecured bond? So that we also have kind of a risk score developed and deployed recently.
All right. And for the loans, so you also talked about the loan history. You're watching the loan history, defaults or not, it's part of the Mintos risk score. So it's more difficult for a new loan originator to rank them than for a loan originator that is on Mintos for 10 years, right?
It's actually not, because what we are looking is how the loans for that particular loan originator has performed historically. Because let's say kind of lending companies that we are connecting as new lending companies on Mintos, they usually are not new companies, meaning they're not kind of startups.
So they have to provide everything to you, like the history and all the stuff?
Yeah. Sometimes it might be that like the company has been in market like 10 or 15 years, and that's more than some of the existing lending companies. So what we can actually look is the historical data of the lending company, definitely paying more attention to more recent history to show like what are the loan performance, but we are actually able to kind of assess that also for lending companies that are new to Mintos, but not overall new.
So Mintos is one of a few regulated platforms in the European Union. Do you think like every platform has to be regulated, or what are the benefits for both sides to be regulated, for Mintos and also for the investors and also for the loan originators? What's the key benefit of it?
Yeah, it's a good question. If all the platforms should be regulated, maybe let's say there should be some kind of sandbox approach for like smaller companies that start the operations.
It's very expensive to get regulated? Or?
Yeah, because it's kind of more expensive, and you never know like if the business model goes. So I overall would be kind of in favor that there is some kind of sandbox, but that sandbox cannot be forever. In a way, kind of Mintos went through the same process. So back in the days when we started, there was kind of no regulation whatsoever related to this area. So we just like operated within the framework or laws that were applicable to money transfers or some other things. And at some moment we kind of outgrew our sandbox, and when we discussed with the regulator, we understood we have to be regulated. So I think also for companies that are operating for prolonged periods, they have reached some volume, I think it makes sense for them to become regulated. In terms of the benefits, I think they are like on both sides, like for the company and for investors. First and foremost, I think it is for investors, because if you adhere to like certain financial standards, financial requirements, regulatory requirements, it does bring more safety to investors. And it could be just as kind of simple thing as, is your money that you keep as uninvested with any of the platform, is it kind of really segregated? Because if you're not regulated firm, you can keep it segregated, but legally it might depend, like if something happens with you, let's say kind of a court administrator comes in and they are up to kind of interpretation, is that money of investor or is this like money of company? So that's like a huge difference in what like investors should take into account. And overall, it also means like the company is more sustainable because like as a regulated entity, we need to have like a wind down plan, so which is a cost for us and like takes additional resource to develop that. But we have a plan. Let's say if the business doesn't go as planned, and if we kind of drop in revenue, reach certain kind of losses, or we don't have sufficient capital, we always need to have such amount of capital so that we can orderly wind down the operations. And for the business itself, the plus of being regulated is that it allows you to kind of do things on cross-border basis. So, for example, we have a license that is passported. So, passported means that like we get a license here in Latvia, but we can work with that license across all Europe. And if you're unregulated, basically at some moment you might not be kind of able to advertise, or some moments local country might say that, okay, well, you are unregulated, just kind of don't work with our clients. You can work everywhere else, and it's like up to other countries. And this means that like if, let's say, you're from Germany and BaFin says like some of the unregulated platforms that like they are not able to work, suddenly they cannot work with you. It's drop of volumes. They might not replace it with somebody else, and actually the firm that provides is like at more risk. So, and it kind of at the end of the day, like these risks will boil down to kind of potential risk of investors.
All right. So there are a lot of P2P platforms right now. Mintos is one of the oldest and I guess the biggest in the European Union right now. What's the main difference between Mintos and competitors? So why choose Mintos and not another one?
So we ourselves actually, when we look at this, so I think we did like closest to P2P lendings very first like half year or year when we had our own lending company. We issued mortgage loans in Latvia and then offered them to investors. And since then we actually moved to what we call like more like a marketplace model. Again, like the naming doesn't mean like any difference to investor, but this is also what kind of differentiates us, is that the lending companies we work with, they are not kind of owned by Mintos, so it's not just like a different pocket of Mintos where we take the loans. So these are like third-party lending companies, even if like for some of those companies which we also have made public, some of the shareholders overlap, but these are like third-party companies which we kind of evaluate and bring to our marketplace. What it means for investors and what differentiates us, and in this case, I think like we are, if not the only one who is doing something like that, then kind of one of few, and definitely is by far the biggest. So we have kind of a diversified type of businesses, or like diversified type of loans that are being offered. Because we have seen also from our examples that we have had problems historically with some groups that have connected, and if you're P2P platforms that has only kind of one connected group, it's basically kind of binary results. So either everything is good, or at some moment nothing is good. So this is like one thing that differentiates us. So you can kind of also invest at volumes and have your money deployed, because we all the time keep around like 50-100 million of investments available. And over the last 1.5 years, so what differentiates us definitely from other P2P lenders is that we are offering other products, which are still the same bonds or real estate. They provide regular cash flows to investors, what the investors appreciate, but you can have it as like one-stop shop where you can invest both in kind of non-traditional assets, such as like loans, real estate, and high-yield bonds, and also go for something traditional as like ETFs, soon to go also in stocks and crypto and smart cash. So you don't need to kind of switch across like different platforms.
All right, coming to the last question. We already talked a lot about upcoming products like crypto, single ETFs and stocks, but what is your big vision for Mintos for the next 10 years? Do you also planning to go to another areas in the world, maybe the US? It's very difficult from here, I know, to
Yeah.
operating there. What's the plan? Where do
Yeah.
you see Mintos in 10 years?
So basically, we have set that vision already a few years ago, and our overall vision is to become a top choice for retail investors in Europe for wealth building. By wealth building, it means short term, long term, mid term. I think where it's maybe easier to say like where we don't want to be in terms of wealth building is like provide some kind of day trading for investors.
Yeah.
So this is like with what we kind of don't associate ourselves. So from that vision, it arises like we want to concentrate on investors from Europe. We see that like a great market. Looking at all the figures from ECB and ESMA, so there's so much kind of money that Europeans, individuals are holding just in bank account, earning nothing.
That's true.
So we think
Especially in Germany.
that's interesting. I just had like a meeting with one other person, and he's saying that was only in that country. Like Latvians say, it's only in Latvia, but that's kind of European-wide phenomenon. That like people are not kind of investing, and they're holding the money.
They're burning money
on
the bank account
for inflation or making bankers rich. So that's why we want to be serve for European individual investors. And in terms of opportunities, what we have already provided so far with lending, it is across different countries, across the globe. We are looking at some other countries which I'll not name currently, but we want to expand, and also looking at other asset classes, the same kind of real estate. So we started with Austria, now it's Latvia.
I'm staying in an Airbnb here from
nice.
Mintos,
so we would start with Europe, and very likely at some moment we would also offer the same real estates and bonds from outside of Europe. So this for the Europeans to be able to build their wealth for whatever needs they have with different type of assets around the world.
Nice. So to sum it up, you want that if I think about wealth building, I think about Mintos.
Yeah, that's we hope that in closer than like 10 years, that like when we ask the people about how to build wealth, Mintos is on top of their mind.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Ja, das war's mit dem Interview. Wie gesagt, wenn ihr noch irgendwelche offenen Fragen habt, schreibt sie auf jeden Fall in die Kommentare, dann nehme ich sie beim nächsten Mal mit. Ich fand es auf jeden Fall sehr sympathisch und es war sehr transparent, das Interview, dass ich auch mal bei Mintos vorbeischauen durfte. Es ist wirklich ein riesiges Office mit über 180 Leuten, die dort arbeiten. Aber ja, das war's mit dem Interview. Jetzt bin ich mal gespannt, was eure Gedanken sind. Schreibt es in die Kommentare und lasst auch gerne einen Daumen nach oben und ein Abo da. Wir sehen uns dann im nächsten Video wieder. Bis dahin und ciao.